August 4th, 2020 is a date that marked my life when the port explosion took place. I was devastated by what was happening around me, and I was in a state of total denial. Thank God my family and I were okay, but the horrible things that resulted from this catastrophe were indescribable. This is when my mom, my sister, and I decided to start an NGO where youth and only youth volunteered to help children around Lebanon. Now, volunteering and helping others was the only thing that helped me in that moment. And a year had passed, and we had helped over 5,000 children. True, this made me feel better, but there was still that feeling deep down inside of me that really hurt. I tried to ignore it, but eventually it started to grow and it started to affect my day-to-day life. Why was I feeling like this? What is this feeling? I had no idea. A few months had passed, and I still wasn't getting any better. I was actually getting worse. And one day, my mom knocked at my door, and boom, I was in therapy. Yes, you heard me well, therapy. And as it turns out, I'm depressed. But what is depression? Is it sadness, anxiety, or stress? Is it caused by society, by family, by school, or even friends? You may not agree with me, but I believe that it's all of that combined. And I think that each and every one of us has a different definition for it. But regardless of its definition, my depression was not easy. Even though many people around me were depressed and telling me things like, it's normal, you're living a surreal life, you're living in Lebanon, but all I wanted to live was a normal teenage life, where my biggest concern was what were my plans for the weekend, or what I'm having for lunch. Instead, I had to worry about what people around me would think of me being depressed. I had to worry about what I should tell my friends and my family, and the worst of it all, I had to deal with my depressed self. And the feeling of not being good enough killed me. I constantly felt like I wasn't a good enough sister, or I wasn't a good enough daughter, or I wasn't a good enough friend. And at first, I hated therapy. Sitting in a room, facing a complete stranger and talking about my most intimate feelings, it's horrible and a very self-centered conversation. A few weeks had passed and I started to look at therapy in a different way. I started to look forward to my sessions. I looked forward to discovering myself and learning about myself and appreciating myself for who I am. And I know that therapy is not an acceptable thing to do in our society, and especially for kids my age, but I couldn't have made it without it. Not that I'm promoting psychotherapists or anything, but rather I'm asking our society to normalize it and to accept it in order to help us in these challenging times. And I want to thank my parents for taking me to therapy and fighting through these social norms, even though it was a very hard decision to make. Because without it, I don't know where I would be today. So, thank you.